time. Let's try this again.
And we are live Sunday night with
For
those guys.
the second
Sunday
time.
night with those guys, sponsored by
Those
guys.
I know we were all discombobulated, guys. Bear with us. There's the chat.
Okay.
We are back. We're up and running. Thank you so much for being so patient. James, thank you for being so patient, because this has happened before, but of course it had to happen when we have somebody on here. We're on here every week.
Is there a second live now?
I think
there a
everyone's
waiting
still, they're
Just
popping in
click on the
now.
alert.
Everyone just got a
Okay.
new alert. Logan
Excellent. So, because
Carpenter's
there's about
here.
10 people in the chat of the other one at the moment.
You might want to tell them to shut down or refresh
Will
or
do.
F5 or whatever. Thank you, Sean, so much.
Did you see
Anyway,
the super chat from Tim Jackson?
I saw a $50 super chat.
Yes.
Tim Jackson. Thank you very much.
Tim Jackson, I thank you. We appreciate you ever so highly. Now,
Hey, Val.
back to this gentleman. I don't know where he is on. Wait a minute, because I'm looking at one screen. I'm looking at you guys. The gentleman there, James Benson. We're going to try this again. Is the pilot from the Louisiana drone trespassing case that Ryan and all of us were talking about on Wednesday nights with those guys. Hello, everyone. Tim Jackson, thank you so much for that super chat. We appreciate you more than you can ever know.
Chris, how you doing?
Logan Carpenter, Night Train, Val's Life. We're being very selective tonight on who we let on the panel, only because we don't want to go squirrel, guys. But
Okay, I'll get the hint and leave. Okay, thanks.
see what I have to go through, James. Anyway, James,
Hey, what's up, Justin?
Would you like to explain the situation? Now, I did remind you, you may have to recant about 2 more times later on tonight, but tell everybody what happened, please, while we say hello to everyone here.
Hello, everybody. The best way for me to say this and not say too much is in April of 2018, I was arrested for criminal trespassing. I was charged with a single count of criminal trespassing over private property without express legal or implied permission. Just prior to that, an officer come to my house and I had just flown my drone over his property. And I admitted to flying my drone over his property. He accused me of hovering over his head just above the trees and flying off in the direction of my home, which I disputed and offered proof, but he didn't want to see the proof. So I asked him to leave and he left. And that was about it. A friend of mine comes over and flies his drone, but he flies it around the property. That was on April the 11th of 2018. About 5 days later, the police showed up at my house and arrested me served a warrant for my arrest for criminal trespassing over private property. And they carried me to jail. There was no talking them down. Out of arresting me, the warrant had been issued. So they put me in a cell. They kept me for about 13, 14 hours, 12, 14 hours, somewhere in the middle of that. And they loaded me up in a van and they carried me to a neighboring city to run me through the fingerprint system they call Avis, and brought me back. And I was allowed to bail out the next morning. And it started from that point. Things started getting a little more ugly. My local DA's office recused the case, and the state's attorney's office picked it up. And it started off with a single count of criminal trespassing. But once they found out that we had flight logs to prove there was no trespassing, they recruited some help and ended up amending the charges and charged me with 3 more counts of criminal trespassing. So at this point, I had 4 counts of criminal trespassing.
Well, not to cut you off, Tim, Mr. Benson, not to cut you off, but I wanted to ask you, that officer that came to your house the first time, was that the same gentleman, the sheriff's deputy that is whose property it is?
That's him. Yeah, it was his. He wasn't living at the property. They were building a house at the time. There was no one living there. But keep in mind, I had permission from him to be on that property at any time I chose to be. Kind of keeping an eye on it for him, so to speak, as construction was going on. So I did have permission to be there.
Okay.
So now they have you for trespassing over a property that you were actually keeping an eye on for them.
Correct.
You know, I'm going to try and restrain. I usually say this throughout a live stream. The views and opinions that are heard tonight are not necessarily the views and opinions of everyone on the panel tonight. So if I say a few things and they slip, I'm putting the disclaimer out there for myself. Okay, because it's just amazing to what's going on as far as this story. Now, you said you only flew over this property one time at 396 feet, right?
That's correct. My drone, you know, I don't know if yours or
And
yours
let
are the
everyone know
same
what
way.
you were flying.
Right. I was flying an Inspire 1. And the max altitude on it's never 400 feet. It's always 396, 398.
Correct.
About. But that's what it topped out at. And that's what the flight log reflected. I flew over the property once. I never stopped over the property. The camera was pointed down. Reason being is there is structure between me and him. Although I could see the drone line of sight,
Right.
I can't see what's under it due to structure between us, which is tree line.
Right.
So I had the camera pointed down to make sure that I was not stopping over this deputy's property. And I sat there for a minute and ended up turning around and coming back. At that time, I flew over the back of his property, not directly over his home.
But you did not come back through the path in which you took off.
No, it was back further than the flight I took going over it, but it was over the same property, just not in the same place.
Now, you also said that the local municipalities excused themselves from handling the case.
Correct.
And right there, I could see them doing that if they've never had a case like that, or that they just didn't know.
Correct.
But then it was local municipality, and then who else?
The state attorney.
The state. It was the state attorney.
Right.
And then it went to the attorney general of the state. And
correct.
That's
The
when
state
they
attorney.
decided.
That's correct. They decided to prosecute it.
Sean, help me out here, because I'm screaming like when last week on Ryan's show. I'm like inside it. There's a lot of
James, I have a question. Was it the sheriff department that arrested you?
Correct.
Okay, so the
local town you
sheriff
live in.
had to be in line with what they were doing.
Correct.
Let me explain that. It was the day that the deputy came to my house and made the threats to shoot my drone down. This was the only one flight over his property. The day that he came to my house and threatened to shoot the drone, and we had the verbal altercation, he left. But then I called the sheriff's department and was connected to the assistant sheriff. Louisiana has an assistant sheriff. He's the one I spoke to.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that told me that it was a privacy issue. But then I stated, can you tell me that it's a legal issue? Have I broke any laws? He said, I can't tell you that at this point, but I have a call in to find out. Would you like for me to let you know? And I said, please do. I never heard another word until they come to arrest me.
And how many days after that did they come to?
It was probably maybe 5-6 weeks, somewhat, whenever they came to.
So this was basically stewing on someone's desk somewhere, or
Yes.
or because if they wanted to prosecute you or handle a situation, they could have done it. I would like to believe a lot
Sure.
faster in the time it took them to come
Right.
and harass you.
Right.
That's what I call
James,
it.
the other question I have is, you live in what I would guess is more of a rural county.
It is. I live in the country of a rural county.
And being in Louisiana, I'm very familiar with the Good Old Boy Network.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
So that may be part of the issue, correct?
I'm sure it is. It's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody plays golf and has dinner.
One question before you finish. Is your house bigger than everyone else's?
Oh,
Because I'm trying to come up with a legitimate reason that these guys would act and do what they did, and
I
take
think
it
it
to
was
the
because
extent.
it was a young deputy, very young, and I think he figured he would come to my house and tell me what to do
But the
because he
fact
was a
that he
deputy.
threatened to shoot your bird out of the sky,
It
and
stated he had a federal judge's
you went
permission.
to his higher ups.
Right, right. He
One
claimed he
thing-
had a he claimed he had a federal judge's permission to shoot the drone.
Yes.
And I didn't buy all of that. And I asked him to leave my property promptly, and he did.
Okay, because someone just asked in the chat room, you can't see the chat, but Tim Jackson asked, did you record the flight? Now, keep in mind, Tim Jackson, the flight logs can be used as evidence in a court of law, provided the judge accepts it as evidence. Your flight logs were refused and your witnesses were refused as well, correct?
No, sir.
Or how did that go?
No. My flight logs were admitted. They tried to get them thrown out, but they
Okay,
were admitted.
okay.
Right. They were admitted. My Ryan Latrette was my
Yes.
professional witness. Good man. He was my professional witness. And they would not allow video conference testimony from him.
All right.
They would not allow him, so
We did
So
know that part.
so I take it your attorney during the trial then, since they wouldn't allow video testimony, he did not then request a delay until he could get him there?
No, I don't think at that point in time there was really an option for Ryan. He said it was a real bad time for him.
right.
A lot going on with a new job possibly. So I don't think it was a possibility at that time for him to come.
Right.
My attorney did present some sort of state's evidence or something from another trial that would substantiate his claim or request for me to have the video testimony, but they shot that down. It
All
was
right.
just
Now there are a few 107 pilots in the chat room, and one of them, Recovery One Drone, is asking, did the Attorney General use an airspace expert to testify?
the only two experts they had. One of them is a ULM professor who teaches drone flight, and the other one was a state police officer that teaches or something in the state police. I don't know that either of them were actually experts per se. I think that they were what the state wanted to call experts.
Okay.
So no,
Wow.
none of them
Wow.
had they are the ones that stated you couldn't see a drone past 800 feet.
Okay. Now, and this is what makes me want to scream,
See,
because they said you could not see your drone past 800 feet, but yet at 400 feet, they could see the camera of your drone pointed down at them.
Well, yes.
So they claim.
So they
So
claim.
So they
You know, the
claim.
telemetry of your drone shows the orientation of your camera, side to side and up and down.
Yep.
And they could see from the flight logs that the camera, for a brief, maybe 3 seconds, was pointed down.
And your attorney doesn't understand FAA and all that kind of stuff. He was just trying to do his best, I take it. Because the FAA teaches you, if you need to get orientation, point your camera down, reorient it, come back up, and then
look
step
at your
by step.
surroundings. Look
Yes.
at your
Right.
surrounding and look for landmarks, which is what you said, the reason why your camera is pointed down, correct? Because
Yes, sir.
between
Yes, sir.
your property and his property, you said that there was a structure or something, an obstruction.
Right.
Well,
Now, recovery one drone, I do know he's saying the law is the law, but recovery one drone in this little town, they don't know the law themselves. So maybe in a larger city, we could argue that fact, but he's going, the law is the law. They should have had an expert there, an expert from the FAA.
well, the only problem I have with it is that they're saying that you couldn't see your drone
Right.
from where you were. Then how was a complaint made if you couldn't see it? How'd they see it?
Hit that like button, guys. Even you lurkers out there.
You know, that was the one thing that came to my mind when I first heard the whole case and about the.
Well, if the drone is if the drone's above his head, obviously it's only 350 feet. If so, the sheriff deputy is saying it's above him, then obviously he's going to be. It's only 300 odd feet ahead of him, so he would claim to see it that way in line of sight.
Well, I'm going to say something, and I'm going to say this on a whim. I have flown an Inspire One before. In fact, with drone X Factor out here along the beach, and we were flying.
Don't you swear?
Bends and yeah, I know. I had to force it out. You didn't see me swallow. You didn't see me swallow first. But anyway, hey, what's up, Explicit? Anyway, I got to fly this Inspire, and I had it over the water, maybe about 60 feet, and was able to take it up to about 450, 500 feet away, and I could still see the silhouette of it in the sky. So they're telling you, James, that there was no way you could see that bird. But yet they could see it. I'm trying to word things properly because my head is going screwy with all of these numbers and everything.
Right. I mean, I fly Phantom 4 Pro, and I know how far away I've had that, and I can see it.
Exactly.
You know, I just.
But it's Herman's right. It's if you're, because I've owned several Inspire ones, and if you know what you're looking for, you can see it. Where somebody else just casually scanning the sky, they don't know what they're looking for.
Right.
Especially if you don't know it's there.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly. And you were passing over, I'm quite sure at 396 feet, they could not hear the 15-inch props.
No, sir. No, sir.
You know, and that's what bothers me, because nonetheless, could someone else say something?
Well, in the court case, James, did the fact that he threatened to shoot your drone down come into play at all?
It did several times, but it was downplayed because his threat to me was with a 9mm handgun. His threat in court was with a shotgun in birdshot at 400 feet, would have never touched the drone. But that was his play. It was several times that he testified in court
and changed the story.
But my point is that the FAA takes very seriously anybody threatening to shoot down an aircraft, and your drone is considered an aircraft.
Correct.
So, I mean, he, as a deputy, he should be gone out, no longer a deputy by threatening to shoot down a legitimate aircraft.
I agree.
Have no jurisdiction to shoot down that aircraft either.
Nope.
This is true. This is very, very
unless
true.
he's with the military or Homeland Security.
Right.
Well, Louisiana law states that it is criminal trespassing if you enter upon movable or immovable property without express legal or implied permission. But all of that is set aside. It says as long as you're flying within FAA guidelines or you're not conducting surveillance. That's how Louisiana law reads. As long as you're flying by FAA rules and following FAA rules, then you're not in violation of any kind. That's why the line of sight was so important to them. If they could prove that I was flying out of line of sight, then they could prove that I wasn't flying within FAA guidelines. Therefore, they could take over.
And except though those guidelines have changed, you could have a spotter down the road and be within your rights to fly it out of line of sight.
Correct. And I've heard that.
Now,
Yeah.
someone recovery one drone puts a threat is real if the person has the ability to carry out such a threat. Not that the threat can be carried out, but the threat itself should have been punishable, but due to the fact that it was a deputy sheriff.
Well, we all realized it was a gang up.
Yeah.
Right.
They
Well,
pretty
in these
much
small
ganged up
towns-
on you, James.
Sir?
They pretty much ganged up on you.
They did. I didn't stand a chance from the beginning. I knew the day that they arrested me that this was going to stick all the way to the end. There was too many people helping people, buddies helping buddies, prosecutors helping buddies, and I didn't stand a chance.
Can you please explain to the people who are listening and in the chat and the ones who will probably watch this over again to understand from the beginning what's going on? Can you explain what evidence they brought to court against you?
Really, the only evidence that they had in court is my 2 flight logs. They tried to use those against me. The same 2 flight logs they tried to get dismissed wound up being all that they had for evidence. They had the deputy's next door neighbor and her next door neighbor, both in the middle of all this, come out and decided that one of them, a drone, had flown down into her backyard, which she is the next door neighbor to the deputy, flew down in her backyard. She's seen the drone. It was light in color with dark markings, and it flew
So
down.
that definitely wasn't yours.
No, it flew down into her backyard and stared her up and down. It moved about in her yard where it ascended back up into the trees and flew back in the direction of my home. When they asked her
into the trees, mind you.
Right. It flew up through the opening in the trees and flew back in the direction of my home. And when they asked her, how do you know that that was Mr. Benson's drone? It's because she asked the deputy. And he advised her that it was my drone.
So it could have been she was seeing a UFO.
It could have been she was seeing a bird, a UFO, or anything, but it was my drone.
Yeah.
Well, she was saying what she was told to say.
That's correct.
Yes. JKS says he did not see the beginning of this, but yes, he was arrested, and you have been charged already, correct?
I have been charged and tried and found guilty.
Can you tell the conditions that all of this has led up to?
In other words, like what is the result of the judgment?
The result of this is I was found guilty of 3 counts of criminal trespassing, entering private property without express legal or implied permission. I was given 2 years probation, unsupervised probation, 30 days in jail, and $300 in fine per count. Sentence was no jail time. They suspended that. And I cannot own a drone.
Wow.
So are shotguns legal in your town?
They are in the country. You're free to.
I would take up skeet shooting. And what I would do is I would aim the clay birds towards my neighbor's fence. And every time one launched off, I would go pull and fire and leave all the clay pots in his yard.
Well,
you need to get the hell out of. You need to get
he's
the hell out of that
1,500 foot. He's 1,500 feet through the woods from me.
Wow.
But every time that they claimed a drone seeing them, it was in their front yard, which is only about 200 feet from a public street. So anything that they're claiming that could have been seen from a drone could have been seen from a public street. A whole lot better.
What is
It could have just been someone else's drone if they saw one.
Yeah, James. My question is this, and since it affects you, none of us, and we're all supporting you, but have you thought about going back and saying, listen, I will accept the fines, but I will not accept never being able to own a drone again, because that's like you telling people they can never own a gun again.
Right.
No, and there's two parts to that. First of all, I wouldn't do that because it's my right. That's like telling somebody that got a DWI they can never own a car again. It's
Right.
my right to own a
Right.
drone. And it may be that the judge intended to say you can't own a drone for the 2 years you're on probation. That may be what was intended to be said.
Mhm.
Because I know that it's going to affect you one way or the other, and God love you, and we're behind you, but it's like still you out in front. You know what I mean?
Right. I was raised up where right was right and wrong was wrong.
Yep,
If
exactly.
you done something wrong, you owned it. And I've always owned my mistakes, but this is not one of them.
And did they bring up in the trial at all that he had given you permission to be on his property
Well,
to
yeah,
watch
yeah,
the construction over his house?
It's interesting you mention that, Paul, because James Benson mentioned earlier before the live stream that this property, the deputy does not actually live on, or they were building a house there. And James was actually keeping an eye on the property.
That's
So
what I'm
not
saying.
only,
He wasn't there.
right, the deputy sheriff wasn't there most of the time. And
No. They came to visit and see progress, but at this time they weren't living there.
wow.
That actually makes it more cloudy, because if they was he there at the time that you flew? Or
The
you don't
first
know?
time, the first time he was, the one flight that I made over his property, he was there because he came directly to my house as I was landing the drone. The second time that it was somebody else, it was to my understanding that his wife was walking the children to the mailbox, and this drone hovered over her head at treetop, up just above the trees for just under a
And how
minute, or
tall are
just
the
over a minute.
trees? How tall are
Right,
the trees?
just over the trees, and then it left there and flew back in my direction. Was what I was told when I was arrested, but in court, it was said that it was him and his wife and children that were going to the mailbox, and but she is the one that called in the complaint, not him, the first time.
Wow.
So I don't think he was there at all. I think it just turned into him needing to be there during the trial.
Yeah.
And you had flight records that supported
I'll be right back.
on that date.
I have the flight record from February the 15th, which was my flight.
Mhm.
And I had the flight record for April the 11th, which was the guy that was flying it the second time. I have both flight
And at
logs.
no time did you hover over their mailbox?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir. At no time did the second flight, the drone went around the property. It shows on the flight log at 400 feet, flying at one time at close to 50 miles per hour. It never flew over that property. It never stopped near that property. It flew around it. And the guy that was flying that drone was in court and testified, but they didn't find his testimony credible either.
Even though the flight record showed that, that's well.
I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's almost funny, but it's happening to you, and it's not funny because it affects everybody that flies a drone.
It does, and this is going to be the epicenter for this mistake, and it's going to just filter out. It'll get Texas and Alabama and Arkansas, and then it's just going to be like cancer. It'll be the whole
Well, this
United
is what
States.
we're hoping does not happen, because someone wants to know, what did the FAA say about all of this?
The FAA says they don't get involved in individual disputes or incidents, basically because if they do, they'll have to do it for everybody, and they do not have the resources to do so.
Yeah,
Now, they told me every time that I called them that I was flying illegal, not to worry about it. But once I was arrested, they're sorry, there's nothing they can do.
They were just
organization
putting you up.
jurisdiction over the airspace.
Yeah. they were putting you off. An FAA representative should have been subpoenaed by the judge to be there in that courtroom to explain to all those knuckleheads that the local state does not own the airspace.
But what's
Had
funny
they
is
done that, they wouldn't have had anything, and they knew it. So there's no way they were going to ask the FAA to come in.
they weren't going to bring in an outside source, which is what
No.
was needed.
And your
No.
attorney didn't try that, right? He didn't get a warrant,
He did not.
a subpoena.
No, there is not a attorney in my area that knows anything about drones or drone laws. They know what they read. That's it. So he really didn't understand, I don't think, the whole magnitude of this case.
It sounds
was-
like they're trying to create a standard for local municipalities by letting the attorney general handle the case. Because the attorney general handles the case, guess what? It's getting written in the law books.
It's a precedent setting. That was the big deal in court is everybody was talking about, or at least everybody on their side, that this is a precedent setting case. And it's very important to the state of Louisiana to be the ones to set it first. That's why they fought so hard to get this. They didn't have anything. And then they started a character assassination. They went back into my past 16 years to find anything that they could find to dig up, to bring to court that would question my credibility.
Sean?
Wow.
They paid an investigator and 5 or 6 witnesses for the whole 27 hours of this trial.
I see exactly what happened. They happened to run upon a situation where, like I said, the deputy used his privilege. And once it got to the nose of the state attorney general, they tried to use this as something to set a precedent in your state and see how far this could actually go. Correct. And they ganged up on you.
They did.
To be honest, it sounds like they were trying to go viral, and it didn't. Right. I mean, your case and your part. Now, I'm not too familiar with law, and now that you've been told what's going to happen, what happens as far as trying to appeal all of this? What's happening? What happens with that?
In the state of Louisiana, first of all, misdemeanors are almost never appealed. Misdemeanors are almost never treated. There was news stations and newspapers here that said they had been to murder trials, that they didn't see this much activity.
Wow.
They have been to murder trials and they didn't see this much going on. In fact, there had been a murder trial in that court that didn't last as long as this did.
Wow.
But what happens is there has to be an appeal for a new trial, which to the same judge that heard this, which is 100% chance going to get denied. From there, it has to go to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, and an attorney has to write writs, is what it's called, writs. He has to do a huge, long report on what he feels went wrong. He has to have references to the court transcripts that substantiate that this went wrong, and he has to have laws to back that up.
Now, someone's saying also, is there a chance you could have a wrongful arrest case brought up? Is that a possibility or no?
They think it is. I think that was part of their motivation for trying to bury this, because they thought there was going to be a civil suit, which there wasn't, but they probably thought there was. And I really don't know at this point. We're just trying to get it.
But to be
overturned.
A wrongful arrest case on inaccurate information, I'm looking in the chat as I'm getting this stuff, and it's coming in pieces, but that sounds like you might have something. The problem is, if they went through all this trouble in town, who can you get to be on your side that would stand by you to go through all of this again?
Not a possibility. I went through a law firm, one local attorney, one Shreveport attorney, to the one I have now. So I'm on my 4th attorney.
Wow.
How
Sean.
do you feel about the fourth attorney?
His name is Chris Hatch, and he is a knowledgeable, smart. He's dedicated to this. I think he's going to see it through. The attorney I had before him was the same way. His name was Jordan Berg, smart, and he was dedicated. But these people had more resources and more money to throw more at this than he could fight.
Well,
I-
I think that you're gonna have, if you're gonna subpoena, if you're gonna go through the whole thing of trying to get a new trial, and I think you're gonna have to take it the whole way with this guy, and hopefully, like you said, you feel comfortable with him. I never met the gentleman. I believe that Ryan spoke with him as well, and he might be someone who has the resources to get the witnesses that he may need, the knowledgeable witnesses that he needs. Ryan, I believe, will be there, to testify if it does come down to that. But you need someone that can get into FAA law and be able to shuffle that around that court.
I have that.
As someone in the chat says, not loyal to Boss Hog.
Well, that plus, James, have you discussed with your attorney about trying, or at least discussing the possibility of doing an end run and going to the federal court system to circumvent the local BS and go to federal court to get a federal judge to say this is BS? No, you're out of there.
When it leaves the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, it goes straight to the Louisiana Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Okay.
They both of those two courts had the option of looking at it before they ever touch it and saying nope and throwing it in the trash. Both courts, Second Circuit Court of Appeals and Louisiana Supreme Court, all had the option to throw it straight in the trash and not touch it. They have that option.
The only reason I was asking about federal court is because you're dealing with a federal regulation.
Right. But it goes to the U.S. Supreme Court is the third course of action. It goes to them. I have had a huge outcome of people in the legal business, people that's worked for the FAA that are attorneys, that have offered all of the information, all of the FAA laws that's needed for this. They've all offered it to my attorney. So anything he needs, he has access to. He doesn't have to research anything.
Mia's drone. Mia, that would have been a great idea, but this town was so reluctant to actually help James in his case. He says, wouldn't it be possible to take a few drones and put them at the sky at different intervals to see where you could see it and where you can't? The point is, on Mia's drone, they actually got him on flying beyond the line of sight, which they claim he could not see his drone at 400 feet plus away. What is the actual footage that they claim you couldn't see your drone at, James?
They said you couldn't see one beyond 800 feet.
Right.
Both of the state's experts, these are supposed to be drone experts, claimed that it couldn't have been seen beyond 800 feet.
Now we're talking about an Inspire 1. We're not talking a
Big
Phantom.
drone.
We're not talking a Phantom or a Mavic Pro. We're talking an Inspire 1 with 15-inch props on it. Okay. So that's just, I'm telling you, I've flown an Inspire before, and you can see it on a good day as well as a bad day. Justin, weren't you flying your Inspire in the fog one day and we could still see it with the lights? We could see the running lights on it.
Yeah.
So where do you go from here, man? What's happening? It's 5:46 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What is your next course of action?
As of right now, it is waiting on the court transcripts to be written up. I pick those up and take them straight to the attorney I have in Shreveport.
Okay.
And he starts his work. He files for an appeal to buy a little extra time, and then he starts.
As someone saying you need to be able to to subpoena the FAA, because believe it or not, that is the only way the FAA is going to come to court. If you subpoena them, and then it's not even subpoenaing them, it's a matter of them having someone to show up at that time and place. According to the FAA, they're all over, but when it's time to go to court, they're very scarce.
Yeah,
Look,
they
I reached
they
out
will
to
not get involved.
everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I reached out to DJI, the AMA. The AMA was probably the least help out of everybody.
Yeah, I know they're junk.
They offered absolutely nothing but good luck. That at least the FAA would speak to you and tell you that you know they were not biased. They just, you were either doing this right or you were doing it wrong. But we can't help you, is the answer I got. You're right, but we can't help you prove it.
Wow. So now
Yep.
you basically have to wait for the transcripts to be done.
That's correct.
Go over their evidence, highlight it in a big yellow marker, highlighter.
That's correct.
and somehow prove that these guys didn't know what the hell they were talking about from day one.
That's correct. He has to, in a crime, especially one you're charged with, there are elements of that crime. The elements of my crime was criminal trespassing with intent to conduct surveillance. That's the element. They have to be able to prove your intent to conduct surveillance. That was never touched.
Proven.
The only proof they had of that was a stupid picture that nobody knows where it came from.
Listen to this, guys. Can you explain this really?
It was an aerial photo about the size of my laptop, probably 12 inches by 12 inch photo taken from the air. It almost looked like it was taken from a satellite, but I can't say. But this picture was taken. It looked like it was probably taken 400 or 500 feet in altitude. But then it had a blow up window next to it, about 4 inch square of an individual on the sidewalk below. And then below that, it had a picture of I didn't know they make an X3Z for an Inspire. I've never heard of that, but below that, there was a picture of it. What's that?
A Z3.
Okay, Z3. Okay, they had a picture of that camera on the bottom of the picture of whatever this was. This was from someplace not around here. It looked like it was a big city that this picture was taken from. But, I told them I don't.
And they used that as evidence.
That was their evidence.
But he doesn't even own that camera.
You don't own a Z3.
No, he asked him, did he take the photo? My lawyer asked their expert. Nope. Do you know the altitude of this photo that it was taken from? Nope. Do you know any of the telemetry for this photograph?
No.
Nope. That was it. But they did say that the one thing that was missed through all of this that I just realized is that expert basically said that if a drone is flying through the air and their batteries go dead, it falls out of the sky. That was his.
And that was it.
That was the expert.
That's his. He said that if you're flying over somebody, not a crowd of people, but somebody, and the battery goes dead in your drone, it just falls out of the sky.
So basically admitted in open court that he does not fly a drone.
Yeah.
He does fly a drone. Unless
he would have never made that statement.
Well, but he made it.
And the point being, the next question should have been, we're all backseat driving now, but it should have been, how many times has drone's battery died and they've fallen out of the sky?
That would have been a good question.
How many?
Yeah. That would have been a very good question, but it just was never asked. But it would have been a good one.
JSK, it sounds like a Mickey Mouse court, but it went all the way to the state's attorney general because local municipalities would not take it on, but yet they wanted to push the issue.
Is the attorney general up for election here this fall?
I don't know. The person that took it works in a satellite office from the state's attorney's office. So Monroe, Louisiana has a attorney general's office. It's a branch from the main one in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And they have these all over the state. And they employ attorneys that work for the AG's office to handle this instead of it all having to come to Baton Rouge or all having to come up here. So that's who they used. It was a lady from Monroe, Louisiana that works for the AG's office. And that's who they
Wants
used.
to make a name for herself.
Well,
Correct.
It seems like pretty much before all of that, the fix was on anyway. They could have gotten anyone to do it. The
Sure.
way they interpreted his evidence was interpreted wrong.
Right.
The way their expert witnesses' interpretation of things was wrong. Because if he can't see it, then the people who brought this false claim couldn't see it. Because as he said, the property is over, what, 1,500 feet away from your property?
It's about
And the lady on the other side of his property saw it. So,
Yeah, and said that it was hovering in her backyard. Like,
right,
what?
Right.
On the other side of the trees, it was hovering.
right. And he didn't lose signal at all throughout the whole thing.
No, it's very thick. And when I tell you thick, I mean thick trees between it. You leave my house and you go about 1,200 feet, you come to her property. You go 300 feet beyond her property and you come to his. And I mean thick trees. And it would take somebody
What's
with,
the average height of these trees?
I'm figuring
2
probably,
stories, 3 stories.
yes. Probably
Okay, so you
3
figure
plus
30
stories.
feet. You figure for every 10 feet, that's a story. So that's 30 feet. You're saying
No, the average height of these trees is probably 75 foot.
75 to
That's-
100 of them.
okay, those
That's
are
what I've
probably-
got here for trees.
so now
probably.
this is the structure, or this was the obstruction that was between your property and his that
That's
you had
correct.
to go up over. So
That's
it's
correct.
not like you could have took off in a low line over his property. You actually ascended to a specific altitude because
That's
you knew
correct.
you had to clear these trees.
That's correct. That's correct. There was no pictures taken. You know, on flight logs, they show if a picture was taken in your flight log,
It
it
shows
shows
the
the location,
altitude and everything right there.
all the telemetry. There was no
Yes.
pictures taken anywhere in that area.
Which
but-
means
No surveillance was being done.
No surveillance was being conducted. And if it did, it took place in about 3 seconds of time in that one single flight. That's where it came from.
I didn't see where any surveillance from based on what I've heard before speaking with you and based on what you were saying. Like I said, and everybody else can see it too, that no matter what had happened, this is what they wanted to have happen. This is what they wanted to do it. Something that happened to fall in the Attorney General's lap, and they found a way to get to use this to try to set a precedent.
James, was it a jury trial?
No, sir, it was a bench trial, strictly judge.
Just bench trial. Okay.
That's
That's
it.
good. That's a good old boy trial. Yep.
Right.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Because anybody with a brain sitting there and you could go step by step and explain it to them, they'd say, no, not guilty.
yeah,
That's why my lawyer was so unprepared. He could not imagine when the judge handed down that verdict. Let me tell you this. This is really good right here. The very first thing that was said when we walked into the court went into session. The first thing that come out of the judge's mouth is, I just want all of you to know that this was not a criminal case for this court.
this
Yes,
was
sir.
not a criminal case.
This was not a criminal case for this court. And then he handed down the verdict.
Wow.
Yes, sir. He said this was not a criminal case for this court.
That's a flip flop, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Well, when he said that, my lawyer kind of grinned and I felt good. I thought we're fixing to win this.
Right.
And then when he come back with that verdict, my lawyer's eyes got big as a football and he just was dumbfounded. He walked around like a zombie. He just couldn't believe it.
It's very rare that I'm speechless. Trust me, ask these guys.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's very rare that I'm speechless and quiet about certain issues.
This has had a huge effect on the drone industry around here. I've talked to at least 24 people. They're scrapping theirs.
Now,
They were
how
gonna
many
buy their
people? It is about how many people off the top of your head fly drones in your area?
Sure. Man, there's a lot of people around here that fly drones. A lot. There was
Now,
a
see,
real
Are they on
What I-
Facebook?
Now, what I fear is,
Yeah.
what I fear, James, is you for the next 2 years can't fly or even touch a drone. You can
No.
go to Best Buy and look at one and say one day, you know,
That's
but
it.
just saying that jokingly. But what's going to happen if somebody flies a drone over that neighbor's property again, and are you going to take the blame for it? Are they
Take
going
the
to
hit.
come knock?
Yep.
You understand what I'm saying? Are they
Well,
going to come knocking on your door?
You know, the one of the biggest things about all this is when that warrant was issued, and then take in mind, no one ever called me, no sheriff, no other police officers, no investigators, no one ever come to my house. They know me, they could have called me. No one ever did that. They just went and strictly got a warrant for my arrest on the deputies and a couple of neighbors that the deputy recruited. They got this warrant and come arrested me before they ever had a lick of proof that that drone belonged to me.
Wow.
Just because they knew I owned one, it had to be me. And they come and got
Are
me.
you the only Inspire owner in the neighborhood?
I'm the only Inspire owner, but I'm not the only drone owner. There's 4 of us, including one of the complaint.
Well, I have the case point. I have the case proved why they did what they did. Your
Right.
drone is bigger than their drone. I mean,
That it could be a case of mine
Well,
is bigger than theirs.
I personally think that since they recruited the ladies next door to
Right.
join in, it was the wife.
Yep.
It wasn't the deputy. It was the wife leaning on, hey, gals, we got to get together.
Correct. And that's very likely that happened. But I know all of these people got up in court and perjured themselves. Every one of them told stuff that was not true. And it broke my heart to see these older women, I'm talking about my mother's age, get up in court and tell stories that were not true. I would have gave anything to have a lie detector test that day in court, and everybody took it because the truth would have come out.
Wow.
Now, did your attorney cross-examine them and warn them about perjury, and that we can bring witnesses that they will be perjury as a major offense?
He did. And they actually pulled that same stunt on me as well. But yeah, he did. He told them. But they know, the state knew that there's really no way for him to verify or prove anything, except for one of the deputies had went to the house of one of the ladies that was in on this, you know, in about the middle of this when she came into it. And then the deputy denied ever going to her house. But me and 2 other people seen him pulling out of her driveway. So they could have gotten phone records to prove that he called her while I was there talking to her.
But
And
nobody would have pulled that up. We need to take a quick, just do a drop really quick. It's 6 o'clock on the hour. And another disclaimer, we need to put out that James is not stating all of the facts due to the fact that
It's still
there
legally
are some
pending.
things he could say and some things he cannot say.
Yep.
right.
So, but you guys get the gist of this. The views and opinions that are heard tonight are not necessarily the views and opinions of everyone on the panel tonight. And I totally think it's a bunch of bullshit, but I got it out of my system. I feel better now. Can we do this drop real quick, guys?
Yep.
No, we're not doing no dropping the shots tonight, Mia. We always think sometimes we do a drop and we do a shot.
Lawrence
Those
likes to do a drop and then a shot of moonshine.
No, those around the holidays. It's not holiday time.
We have the recorded evidence, Lawrence.
What happened?
We have the evidence recorded.
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, Sunday Nights with Those Guys is sponsored by
Those
Guys. And for those of you who don't know what the hell is going on here and what's happening, if you saw last Wednesday night's live stream, Ryan Latrette, I got it, was on Herman's Wednesday Nights with Those Guys. And we were advocating for James Benson. So, Paul, if you could put that link again, I'd appreciate it. Every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. He needs to appeal this. He needs to get someone to take it hey, Mint, welcome to Sunday Nights with those guys. All I'm saying is please support James Benson. This man has been persecuted. They might as well make him stand in the middle of the town with a sign on him saying that they bullied him.
Well, they
Damn
did bully
near.
him. Then they're using a little simple incident that didn't have to go anywhere to try
Right.
to set precedent in his state. You had mentioned there's 4 other guys in your area that fly. I don't know, but we have a very large drone community. Very large. There's a lot of groups on Facebook that guys have joined, you know, that are different states, and there happens to be one actually in your state, which happens to be what is that? The Flight Fanatics, Louisiana, or not? Yeah, Louisiana. Flight Fanatics, Louisiana. There's a group in that's sponsored out of Louisiana called the Flight Fanatics. So I
And
don't know.
YouTube, right?
No, on Facebook.
Facebook. Okay.
Okay, Justin, I just saw that. Now, we had a screw up at the beginning of the live stream. For some reason, the chat was disabled. And I forgot the last time that I went live, I did disable the chat. But somehow it has the correct title of the live stream. But in the description, it shows when we did our silent protest, Herman. So I'll go back and change that briefly. Is it okay for me to put the short bio in the description, James, of this live stream?
Yes.
Okay, I'll
Yes.
make sure I do that because right now it looks like we're
What are you saying? You have the wrong
subject.
description?
It says our show of support to those many lives lost due to we did a police brutality thing, and it's in the
Gotcha.
description of this show.
Gotcha.
So I just have to go now. If you're giving me permission to put that little bio you sent me in the email in, I will take out where you put I and put he or whatever. But I just wanted to know if I could use it in the description for people to go back and watch the live stream later on.
Absolutely.
Listen, it's the second hour. You want something you want to go get something to drink or
Gotcha.
you're fine? Are you comfortable? I don't see you
fine.
breaking a sweat or anything, so you're definitely
No,
not
I'm
too hot. You're definitely not too hot or anything. We just
No,
want to
I'm
make
good.
sure you're comfortable. And
Yes.
sometimes us older men have to take a bathroom break, you know.
Well, Sean's been real quiet. Sean, you got any questions?
Why are you
know.
aging? Why are you aging?
I keep going,
Benson, like
Sean. And he chuckles, and I go, Sean, and he chuckles.
I'm here.
Come on, join in.
I have spoken an awful lot about this over the last week. We've tried to get it onto as many live streams as humanly possible. We managed to get it onto Ken Heron's Thursday
Yeah,
night.
James, we were
onto my own
we were
stream as well.
advocating for you, man. Seriously.
Yes.
And
Anyone that went live, we were like, hey, talk about this. Talk about this.
I appreciate
Yes.
it.
Yes.
I do. And it's helping. It's helping.
One thing I did want to ask, James, was whether you're and obviously I'm over here in the UK, so obviously the legal system, I've got a pretty good understanding of the American legal system, but not in its intricacies. Is there not an impact about the fact that the UAS side of things wasn't added to the trespass law until 4 months after the incident occurred? So
Ask me that one more time.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you repeat that?
Well, the UAS section of the trespass and surveillance law, where they specifically stated it could be done by UAS, that wasn't added into the actual state law. It wasn't changed to include UAS until 4 months after the incident and arrest actually took place. I'm interested as to whether how your solicitor explained that from the point of view that you were effectively being almost retro prosecuted, essentially under a new law that didn't exist when the incident took place.
I don't think that was even discussed. I'm not certain that my attorney was aware of that at the time.
Okay.
The only thing that we were aware of is line of sight for hobbyists wasn't a responsibility at the time this happened for hobbyists. And that didn't come along until September of 18.
Because it's also interesting, of course, that the line of sight under the FAA regulations doesn't actually state a distance.
Paul, could you put that link again,
It's a
please?
distance stated. It's more about, have you got effective sight of your aircraft in a way
Right.
to have situational awareness and all that type of thing, which of course in Inspire 1 is so big that it really can
Thank you.
get out there before you have that kind of issue. But yeah, that was one of the things that I found puzzling, because certainly in this country and in other states where I've seen issues of this type, which unfortunately they are growing.
Right.
I noticed that the law itself wasn't actually changed to specifically include UAS until 4 months after, which I thought was interesting.
One of their biggest points in court was that the prosecutor and her two expert witnesses claimed that you had to be a part of a CBO in order to be flying legal
Right.
by the FAA's guidelines. You had to be part of a community-based organization in order to be flying legal, which
Right.
was not true. The
Not
FAA still has not defined.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like
that.
they're almost predating the remote ID side of things, which
Right.
would be absurd. One thing that I think is worth. I mean, everyone this evening has been talking about the old boys network, etc., and that type of thing. But to get the significance of anyone that's thinking of popping onto the GoFundMe page, and this isn't something I normally do. I very rarely speak about fundraising pages and that type of thing, apart from cases like yours, James. But just to give people the real emphasis of the issues that were there, that even the local press were talking about the fact that, as you were saying before, the sheer level of interest, the sheer level of activity in the courtroom, and we're not just talking about state press because it's the state's attorney, etc., that type of thing, but there were actually several LSPO deputies in court. There were several plainclothes officers in court from the Attorney General's office, and local reporters noted that there was a much greater presence than they would ever normally expect beyond the local bailiffs.
Yes.
Within there. So as you were saying, there seems to be some kind of
Ulterior motive?
interest. Yeah, a deeper interest behind this situation, which has been
I don't
followed
think it was
closely
all
at
me.
multiple levels. Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that of course under any country which is a democracy, well and truly flies in the face of what democracy is supposed to stand for.
Right. Recovery One Drone says they didn't go after him on the grounds, but on the privacy issue.
No, but yes, but the state preemption, which talks about trespass and surveillance, it then specifically has UAS to allow them to go after drone operators. So all of that, it's that preemption that they have to prove the surveillance side
But
of things.
they have, James, didn't you say that they did accept the flight logs, right?
Yes, they fought it, but in the end, the judge allowed it, and they were in court.
And the flight logs would make it obvious that you didn't stop to take a picture. So therefore, it shouldn't be declared under surveillance. And it's a catch-22 to
Well,
That's why they went after.
you have a two-edged
Line of
you have a
sight,
double-edged
right.
issue there, though. You have the issue that again, as James was mentioning about his existing attorney, who was essentially or almost bamboozled with a lot of the information, which was taken completely out of context and used.
it sounds, to be
But
honest,
for them to use the flight logs, and for his attorney to use the flight logs and to defend against that, he has to
Right.
know that they're going to make a reasonable argument. He cannot possibly have arguments ready for any kind of unreasonable way that they're going to use those flight
Right.
logs.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
if-
I
if-
offered
for
all
him-
of that.
Yeah, and for him to predict how they were going to use those, which would have been against what the flight logs actually say, would have been impossible. And unfortunately, as this was a bench case, it's only the judge that has to accept that, and no one else.
There was never a warrant issued for anything, any devices, anything. There was never a warrant issued for any of that. They
it was
requested
just
some
for
of that
you,
stuff
the warrant was for you specifically.
for me specifically. There was no warrant for anything.
It
They
sounds
waited.
like they're trying to after hearing all of this in detail now. It says the testimony of the women was what supported the trespass charge. I understand that. That's why they brought the women up in there to back their
Right.
charge that someone was looking at them. But I
Right.
doubt
They
very
have
much.
no flight logs to represent that.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Well, they are saying that they asked me in court during the trial, could flight logs be deleted? Which is a dumb question. Everybody knows that they can. But they stated basically that it's quite possible that I could have deleted flight logs that would have incriminated me. But the fact is that they never asked me for anything when they arrested me. I offered all this stuff to them and they wouldn't take it. I didn't know I was going to be arrested the day I was arrested. Certainly wouldn't have had any opportunity to have deleted anything. So that would have cleared all of that up had they done that.
The other question I have, James, during the trial, did your attorney bring up the fact that what you're flying is considered an aircraft?
I don't think those words were used. No.
Because then, if let's go down the rabbit hole a little further, that means if you owned a Cessna and were flying, are you surveilling people? Are you? Is it okay to fly over property, or, you know?
Our local university, which is Louisiana Tech University, has a flight program for small aircraft. My property out here is their playground for that. They fly over my house all day, most every day, teaching students and the deputy's property as well. To my knowledge, nothing's ever become of that.
I'm
They fly
reading the
unmanned
chat.
aircraft as well.
Sir?
They fly unmanned aircraft as well.
No. They fly manned aircraft over my
Okay.
property daily. So if my drone is conducting surveillance, then I would think the same could be said for a small two-man Cessna airplane flying over the same property.
And if we fast forward and Amazon and all these people start having drone delivery service, what are they going to be considered as? Is they can't fly over anybody's property in Louisiana, or what?
Well, they will be given a special exemption because of the amount of funds they're bringing in. Basically, it'll be given a separate a separate classification. Basically, you'll have UAS, which is all of us, and then UAS 2, which is all of the Amazon, and
So basically, we're right back to where we started from in the beginning, where only you hobby guys and you 107 guys, you guys start trouble.
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys are just troublemakers. You don't know what you're doing.
Goodness.
Yeah.
If you lived here in New York, you could call Help Me Howard or something. These are people that you call and they help with cases, they help get money back, they help with litigation and things like that. Because
I don't think that would have gotten that far in New York with what he had explained to us and what we knew going into the stream. I don't think that would have been able to fly out here.
Recovery One just said that he sat in a webinar on the same issue, citing the Fourth Amendment protection. And when does it become surveillance, and when does it? The lady, your neighbor that complained, James, that literally complained and said that a drone had came down to the height of the trees and hovered there and looked at her. None of them cared about the fact that it wasn't your drone. The fact that it was a drone, you were automatically blamed for it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And this goes back. What's that, Justin?
No, I said, think about it. We're in 2020. You're telling me none of these women had a cell phone in their pocket.
Nobody pulled out a cell phone to take a picture of the drone.
Came down.
No.
But it was light in color, and they described your drone as dark in color.
That's correct.
Well, they have to come up with those kind of vague descriptions because
That's correct.
They were told to say.
That's correct. Those vague descriptions basically cover everything from birds to rocks.
You're
Correct.
next. This lawyer that you're getting up to try and get this appeal to come through. And guys, please donate what you can. But we talked about it on Wednesday. James needs to fight, and because if they can appeal it, I'm pretty sure they could win it. All they
I
have
think
to
so.
do is just look at the flight records, and it'll show that he never stopped over the property. The odds that now this is this sounds crazy, but I'm trying to find something without advertising on it. But I would just love to be in a court with a sign with 4 pictures of it over my head: an Inspire,
Yep.
a DJI, a picture of Cookie Monster, and something else, and tell me which one is the drone that you saw. I mean, it's to that point. I mean, this is so freaking ridiculous. Now
Well,
your
and
demeanor, I'm gonna
and
let you know, James, you're a much better man than me, because I'd be freaking livid. I would literally be livid, man.
I'm sure
Seriously.
that James has gone through a myriad of emotions.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
How are you handling this mentally? That's what I want to know. I mean, you were doing everything that you thought was right, and you were following the rules. You never went above 400 feet. You were doing everything that as a hobby. Are you 107 or are you a hobbyist?
No, I'm just strictly a hobbyist. I
You're
had just
strictly a
gotten that
hobby.
drone.
You're
Yeah, I didn't have it
strictly,
long enough.
you're
I had
strictly
my Part 107 book, and I was about to start studying that to take the test.
and they just shot you out the sky with everything with that.
That's it. I had to get rid of the drone and give the book away.
So
Yeah,
the drone is
drone?
physically gone now.
Well, that particular drone, the one that I flew over that property that one day, is gone. The guy that had the drone that flew around the property the second time, when I got arrested, he said, "Man, screw this." He got rid of it. He was afraid that he would suffer the same fate.
Well, see, this
So
is what we
Intimidation.
don't want to happen, because this case is going to spread like a small little virus through these little towns and
it's already
villages,
happening.
and it's going to get to the point where, yo, you have someone that flies drones down the block. You don't like the color of his dog, we can lock him up.
Right.
And it's
Well, that was my whole deal. Was there were a group of people that didn't understand why when I first found out or first thought this was going to be an issue, is why didn't you just get rid of the drone? And I said, well, I could have done that, but if somebody drives by and don't like the color of my lawnmower, or they don't like my flower beds or the color of my truck, am I supposed to just get rid of those? So at
Yeah.
some point in time, there has to be a line drawn, and then you have to decide on what is right and what is wrong, and then go with what is right.
Yeah, but in this, you were not wrong. And this, what's up, Hadley? I'm sorry, I didn't see you. It's crazy, crazy that you had to go through all of that just for flying a drone from your backyard.
Yeah.
Correct.
God forbid you were standing on on a corner somewhere.
Right.
They might have tried to. Oh, wow. I'm just baffled.
Like I said before, we all see what it is. It's an ugly situation that they let it escalate because, okay, all of the local prosecutors, no one wanted to take this anyway because they really had nothing. What's his name here? The deputy sheriff there.
Barney Fife.
Yeah, well, he had an itch with him, and probably got a lot of pushing from the missus to make an issue out of it. It could have been anyone's drone in the area that she may have saw or may not have ever saw.
But this goes back.
It's necessary to create a case. Everything that was done was created, and it is funny because they didn't want the flight logs into court because they knew that their information was created. This is what I'm getting from listening to all that. All of their information, all of their witness information testimony was created, and there would be no flight logs to represent that. So once the flight logs came in, they misinterpreted the interpretation of the flight logs and said that, okay, well, you erased the flight logs that supports our argument. How are you to know what their argument was to be in court to erase just those flight logs?
That's a good,
Right.
that's a good question. Very good
And
question.
that judge sat there and went through this whole thing and even admitted to you and your attorney in open court that this case was not for this court, and then sentenced you anyway.
Correct.
Because there was something else that was here, not your case.
So
What it
basically,
was a set of precedents so that they can continue to do this to other drone owners in the state as long as they can't do anything about it.
Correct.
You were saying, Lawrence?
so basically, he said, I know you didn't do nothing, but I'm gonna punish you anyway. Pretty much. You can't say it any other way. Pretty much, it doesn't belong in this court, meaning it shouldn't have got to this point. But
Right.
I'm gonna penalize you anyway.
Right. Because it did. And all of that goes back to the biggest deal of the whole trial. The trial focused more. About 80% of the trial was focused on me and my credibility. And once they went through my whole history, they decided then that I'm not credible and I must be guilty. Yep.
Wow.
So when you're moving,
Sir,
so when you're moving
when am I?
out of the state, when are you just getting the hell out of there?
Well, my wife is from here. Her husband, her ex-husband, excuse me, was from that same department. He was a deputy in that same department. Very honorable guy, very good man. And cancer took him away 2 years ago. Had he still been here, this would have never happened. He wouldn't have allowed this to happen. But my wife is from here. Her family is from here. Children are all from here. And I don't want to just have to uproot her and pull her away from her whole life.
I understand
You have to
that.
do that to live peacefully where you are and to enjoy the hobby that you want to enjoy.
Right.
My problem is, James, my problem is, and will always be in the back of my head, suppose somebody else flies a drone over that dude's property. Are they gonna come kick your freaking door in and
Probably so.
harass you for that? And that becomes a problem.
That's probably exactly what'll happen.
That becomes a freaking problem.
Right.
Seriously.
Well, Sean, you can probably speak to the fact. Are you frozen, Sean? Oh, there you are. The Gatwick incident. They went over and kicked the door in and arrested those two people, and then afterwards they had to settle and pay those people because they didn't do it.
Right, they're getting paid over £200, something like that, 200,000 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, they themselves got 55,000, and their lawyers got 145,000, as the case always is, of course.
Now, do you mind? Now, here's something that may be a little irrelevant, but I'm just trying to put two and two together. What is the population of your town, roughly?
Ruston's probably 30,000, 40.
Yeah.
I really don't know what the
I
population
think it was
is.
around
big.
that at the
That's
last.
that's not a big town.
We're a college town.
Okay,
And
because
everything
of Louisiana State.
Louisiana Tech, correct.
Oh, Louisiana Tech. Okay,
That's correct. That most of our population is that university.
Okay.
Wow.
So the locals that live there year round, you pretty much all say hi to each other on the street and stuff. And
That's it. It's a close knit community. In the 11 years I've been here, I know a majority of the people. They're good people. A lot of them just want to stay out of it. Nobody really wants to get involved in it. The politics of it is what makes it. I think it was a small ball that started rolling, and as it got bigger, they couldn't stop it. It got too big for them to stop, and then the state got it, and they thought this was their opportunity to make some kind of history, some kind of precedence in the drone
That's
industry.
what it sounds like they're trying to do. They're trying to write laws. They're trying to have laws for the fearmonger.
That's exactly what happened. Exactly.
James, are you still getting good positive press on this, or is it kind of waned off a little bit?
No, the only thing I'm getting now is this, through this and through the drone community. One of the local online papers, he basically just dropped it. I don't think he's seen any validity to any of it, and he just dropped it. One of the other newspapers run it. They ran the day that it's been in the paper. The verdict day. I haven't read it, but it's in the paper. The local news station didn't come back for the verdict. So I'm not really getting a lot of information. I'm really not talking to people a whole lot about it. The drone industry has been my biggest support.
Wow.
You guys and I've met a lot of people through this. I have been contacted by people nearly all over the country. Lawyers, FAA employees that used to work for the FAA, people who are private investigators, people who are starting drone businesses in big cities that are afraid that this is going to affect their investment, and they're involved.
Right.
They're not involved financially, but they are involved in keeping up with what's going on and offering what help that they can.
And I believe that that's why most of us are involved, because like I had said on my show Wednesday, if we allow this to happen to you, it's going to be me tomorrow.
Yeah.
All next week.
Yeah.
It could be any one of us.
It might jump across the pond and catch Sean.
This is something that we gotta get on top of. We have, well, not us. We're not feeling what you're feeling, but your lawyer, hopefully he knows exactly what he's doing, going to do the right thing for you, and because this has to be stopped. And I've spoken with Ryan, and we're
Immediately
doing some other things that
I'll be right back, guys.
So many local municipalities trying to circumvent laws that are put forth by the FAA, and they're doing their own things willy-nilly, and it can really affect every one of us, because if we allow it to happen to one, we allow it to happen to all.
The prosecutor, this is something else too. I don't know whether I should tell this or not, but I'm going to. The prosecutor that prosecuted this case contacted my trial lawyer. And I'm assuming she must have heard that I'm going to file an appeal. And she stated to him, if I'm understanding this correctly, that if I was going to file an appeal, she was going to go back and petition the court to add that fourth count that she initially charged me with, or that she charged me with in the middle of the trial. So she basically said that if you're going to appeal this, I'm going to go back to the court and try to get them to add the fourth criminal trespass charge to your list of charges.
But they can't do that since you
wants to bully you.
For one stuff already. They can't reconvict you for something that happened before.
Right. I don't know. I didn't think a lot of this stuff could happen neither. So I'm not going to say that it can happen, because I have learned to never say can't, but that's exactly what was done.
Well, I would say the fact that she actually made that statement, make sure you get your attorney or whoever she said that to write a statement on that, because that crosses the border in my mind of malicious prosecution, which is also a felony.
Right.
They are actually allowed to if an appeal happens, they are actually allowed to reassess charges.
Yes.
Because technically it reopens for a very short period of time before the appeal's heard. So they are allowed, because of course they can say, actually, we don't want it to go to appeal. We've reassessed it and we withdraw. We don't want to go through the cost of an appeal that we think we're going to lose. So yeah, they do actually have that right. The fact that the UAS was added 4 months after your arrest, though, bugs me. That still bugs me.
You're talking about the fact that the law went into effect 4 months after.
Yeah, the state law was amended to include UAS 4 months after the arrest, and that just bugs my. And I know it will be a technicality, which means nothing. But it's just another one of the many points on this that you just think, this is not just, this isn't even just an old boys network after someone they don't like, or because they want to support this other deputy or anything else like that. There is definitely something greater, but behind this, certainly at a state level, certainly.
James,
Which again makes it unfair, because that isn't what the criminal system is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about James Benson, his day in court, and the facts, and nothing else. Not what's behind the state's agenda.
And you're innocent until proven guilty. In this case, you were guilty until proven guilty.
Yes, but well, he wasn't even guilty till proven guilty. He was charged with something, and then they kind of made it up as they went along.
Yeah,
in the court.
In other words, he was guilty until they said he was guilty.
The case.
Until they decided what he was guilty of.
Now,
shocking.
James, go ahead.
I had friends of mine in church. One of them was a youth director in my church, and choir director in my church, that was there just to support me. And he is a good, level-headed, very reserved individual, but he actually got up and had to leave the court. He got so frustrated he had to get up and leave the court.
Well, it makes you lose faith in a system that's constantly trying to prove people. I don't know. I'm trying to word this without sounding effed up about it, but I'm mentally disturbed about this. Seriously, because like Herman said, we live in New York City, James. And here in New York City, they're already fear-mongering the crowd and the people by telling employees, if you see someone flying a drone, call this number. Is it going to get to that point? Because if it gets to that point, it'll be here in New York before we know it. It'll be in.
Well, this is why I said what I said. We as a drone community stand behind him, because we can't allow this to happen to him. Because if it's him today, it's me tomorrow, you next week.
Yeah.
And this can't be allowed. There's too many local municipalities that are going in and doing what they want. And the FAA hasn't stepped up and said, listen, I control this area. I control that airspace. See, what I've realized, and I've come to realize this when it comes to the FAA is a cleanup service, just like most police departments. They don't act, they react.
Yeah.
Whereas that something has to happen for them to actually do something.
Right.
They will never step up and say, listen, I have jurisdiction over airspace. If I tell you to bring forth charges, you bring forth charges. If not, local municipalities will go off, and start making up their own stuff and telling you this, and you can't do this, and you can't do that.
If an appeal is the file, if an appeal is the file, the case technically reopened. He's talking to Darryl Hickman. My problem,
and it's only because the charge was originally on the docket, as in after arrest.
But keep in mind, a misdemeanor is not the same as a felony. There really is no appeal for a new trial. You just have to. It's a process that they require you to go through because it was a misdemeanor. The process for a misdemeanor appeal is a whole lot harder than a felony appeal. A felony appeal is the court has to see it. They have to review it. They have to go through it and make findings. In a misdemeanor, they don't have to do that.
And see, that's what sucks about it, because if you were allowed to appeal and it's the same judge, I doubt very much he's going to change his way of thinking.
He's not. He was drug into this like a lot of other people was. I don't think his intent was for this to come out the way it did. He was just drug into something. He's a brand new judge. He's certainly an honorable man. He was just drug into something that it got away from everybody. And I was the one that paid the price for it. But I don't think it's going to change. If it was to go back to the same court, I would imagine it's going to wind up with the same result.
So basically, for the next 2 years, You can't eat, drink, or sleep anything drone related. Now, let's say the 2 years goes by. We're going into the future. I think, are you going to change your hobby?
No, absolutely not. I'm going straight out to buy me 4 or 5 drones and go back to flying them again.
I hear you, man. I hear you, man.
I'm going to go right back to the
I,
same
I,
place, and I'm going to fly just like I did before.
I want you to make a promise to us that we still have like 23 minutes left, but I want you to make a promise to us that you keep in touch with Sean in the UK and those guys here in New York of what's going
Absolutely.
on, what's happening. I mean, if you even want to come into the chat and just and BS with us or whatever, because we have a live chat room here. I want to know what's going on after this. I don't want this to be the last time I hear from you or speak to you. Like this, like the same with Ryan. I met Ryan through another case in Michigan where they arrested a guy and they took his drone. And we here in New York are trying to become a part of Ryan's drone advocate network.
He is a fine. He has been with me from the first of this to now. There's no telling how much time he's dedicated to this, how many of my stupid questions he's answered, how much of my drama that he has put up with, how much drama from the court that he has put up with, and he has still been there, and he has still helped. He is definitely a one of a kind
You want
person.
to know something, James? A question is only stupid to a person who doesn't have the answer.
I understand.
Okay, so there are no stupid questions. You, like you said, had no idea your world would be flipped upside down from flying a drone.
No, sir. I thought right after I got arrested that this was eventually going to be tossed out, and it's going to just go away. And that I don't hold any grudges towards any of these people, even today. I don't hold a grudge against any of them. But
Hey, what's up, Tom? We saw you in the park earlier today. If you saw a black car pull up with tinted windows and the window went down, that was Justin and I. We didn't want to. We were actually leaving the park. We were actually leaving the park, but we saw you over there talking with um what's his name? With Gannon. I forget his first name. But what's going on, Tom? Lens capture. He's another 107 pilot. And could you just briefly give a quick synopsis of why you're on here and what's going on for the people that came in on the second half of the live stream so they kind of have an idea what we're talking about? And I don't know how quick you can break it down, James.
yes, sir.
As to you getting arrested, you were flying your drone. I know it's detailed, but I promise this will be the last time you have to say it tonight.
No, that's okay. I just was basically arrested for criminal trespassing, carried to court on a single count of criminal trespassing. The local DA's office pretty much recused the case and didn't prosecute it for whatever reason. The state attorney's office picked it up, still with one count of criminal trespassing, flying over private property without legal, implied, or express permission was the reason I was given. I was subsequently charged with 3 more counts of criminal trespassing with a total of 4. It went to trial. It was a kangaroo court. I was found guilty of 3 counts of criminal trespassing, 2 years probation, fines, jail time suspended, and I cannot own a drone.
And you were flying at almost 400 feet.
And I was flying at 400 feet. One flight over one property, or 2 properties, I guess you could say, but one flight.
Add an ordinance charge after the initial indictment should also be grounds for appeal. An ordinance charge after the initial indictment. Interesting.
Louisiana's different.
Well, what he's talking about the ordinance change. In other words, like when he got arrested, they added UAS to it or drones afterwards.
Yeah.
Right. They tried to add a 5th charge, but in Louisiana, I don't know if it's the same way as it is in other states, but they tried to add a 5th charge. They wanted to back the charges up to actually the year before, which would have been in 2017. And they couldn't do that because you can only prosecute a case for up to 2 years. So I didn't even own a drone at the time that they were trying to back the charges up and charge me with a 5th count of criminal trespassing. I didn't own a drone at that time, but they weren't allowed to do that because that would have been over 2 years had
But
went by.
just to clarify, James, they instituted a change in the actual ordinance after your case and arrest, right? In other words, didn't they at that point? That's what the reason the question was, is the actual statute didn't include drones, but they put that in afterwards. Is that
Exactly,
correct?
in September, right? I was
Yeah.
arrested in April, and in
Yeah,
September,
not from the indictment, but the arrest. Paul, it was 4 months after the arrest and incident rather than the indictment.
yes, no, it was 4 months after the arrest that the law changed. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes. But it was even after that when they added the initial 3 more counts of criminal trespassing to make it a total of 4. And then she just before the trial, she wanted to back things up and get me with a 5th count for a time that somebody stated a drone flew over that property. But at that time, I didn't own a drone, and it was you only have 2 years to prosecute a case once there is a complaint.
So, and that shows the fact that she was going to blame you for every drone incident that ever happens.
That is correct. Every time anybody even thought they may have seen a drone, then she was wanting to back it up and charge me for that.
Sean, that has shades of Gatwick, doesn't it?
It
All
does.
those thousands of people that saw drones.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, that's crazy. But James, your demeanor and everything after all of this, I can tell you're a great character of a person because of the way you're holding yourself. Because if I had hair, I'd be freaking pulling it out right now.
I've prayed a lot about this, and I've come to the realization is that no amount of being upset or no amount of anger is going to make any of this go away any faster. So I just try to look at it as it's going to all clear up. It's going to work out. I'm getting a lot of help from people like you. My GoFundMe is built up some, and I'm super confident that this is going to work out. So I'm not upset about it. I'm good.
You know what? You need to get this. You need to get this back in court and have your name put back where it's supposed to be, and everything needs to go back to normal.
It's going to. Jordan Bird, my trial attorney, done a great job, and then this new attorney, which would be Chris Hatch, he's going to do it. I went and met with him Friday evening, and he's got a plan. So I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to work out.
Good for you.
No, it's going to work out.
Yes, it is.
That's what, if you believe words have power, it's going to work out.
It's going to. It's taken longer than I thought it was going to, but it's going to work out.
You know what? If it comes to the point where we know they're going to be proven wrong, if and when it gets to that point, you need to have a drone party.
Somebody else brought that up. They want a couple of 100 drones out here just cruising the neighborhood. So.
We got enough of them here in New York, man. We have enough here. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to live there after that drone party, but.
Well, you know what? After that, I probably won't care. You know, I'll move across the line. It's not but 40 minutes from here. I'll just jump over the line on the other side and I'll be fine.
Lens Capture said that he doesn't know, but maybe the ACLU would jump on your side too.
I've tried. Listen, I've tried for 2 years. I have bugged everybody. I've called everybody. I have asked everybody there is to ask. And for a case like this, I either get hung up on or get looked at like I'm seriously stupid, or that's a hornet's nest I don't want any involvement in. So my advice to you is to find an attorney that'll take it. Listen, attorneys are not cheap.
No,
$15,000 is the least I have been quoted to even think about touching this. $15,000
wow.
to do this. No one else wants anything to do with it because it being as serious of a case as it is.
Because it went all the way to the attorney general. Usually people don't want to
No.
take it to that level.
No, it's a $300 fine. A misdemeanor is a $300 fine. The state paid an investigator, and they paid at least,
Witnesses?
yes, they paid 4 witnesses and an investigator through this whole thing. So the state spent a whole lot more than $300 to prosecute a $300 crime. They probably spent $20,000 prosecuting a $300
And that's speaking lightly. It's probably higher than that.
And it probably is. I don't know what the number would be, but they were all paid. A witness,
No, he's
somebody
not,
that was in
Tom.
someone that was in the court for me was sitting close to them and asked one of the witnesses, what their deal was, and they said, well, they were being paid for this, so as long as they were being paid, they were going to be there. So I know they were being paid.
That's why
Where's a little
these
lapel microphone
bigger.
when you need one? You know?
But there's no law against them paying their witnesses because, these are business people that would have to take off work.
There isn't a law to pay. There isn't a law against paying witnesses. But if I have a case, if God forbid the same thing happens here in New York, so what you're saying is I could pay 100 people to come in and say that I was doing the right thing, or that person was doing the wrong. It makes no freaking sense. Now I have to keep saying this disclaimer because of YouTube and all of this, their rules, their terms of service. So the views and opinions that are heard tonight are not necessarily the views and opinions of everyone on the panel. But believe James Benson. Support him. Go to his GoFundMe. Give what you can, give what you can, give what you can. I have never in my life donated to GoFundMe. It wasn't much, but I did what I could.
And I appreciate that.
At the present time. And to be honest, I would like to be one of those guys like they have a secret. I wish I was like a secret Santa and you go pay someone's bill. And I wish I could go, yo, here's the $12,000 because that's how much I believe in this.
No, I got you. I don't expect anything from anybody. The help is nice, but I want to see this through. And I initially last week I had decided I'm just not going to do it. Last week I said I'm done. I'm not going to do this. It's been too stressful.
Who was pushing you? Who was pushing you? To go through with it.
Well, the drone community for one. The support of my wife, the other. And then the third thing is just right up after I had decided not to do this at all, this attorney from Shreveport calls me, Chris Hatch calls me and he said, look, I didn't really understand the gravity of this, but I do now. And I feel like you were mistreated, you were done wrong, and you need help. And I'm going to give you that. So he jumped in, he lowered his price some to help me. And I thought, well, you know what? If I gave completely up and all of these people like Ryan and him and the drone community and you guys stepped up and said, look, we want to help, then I consider that to be a sign of God that I need to pursue this. So I'm going to do that. And I did.
Dude, you do. You do. You're on the horse. It's run away, but eventually it'll get tired and slow down for water. I can't say it any other way, but you're on the horse, so it doesn't make sense to jump off. You might as well ride it out.
And as long as we can spread the word, every chance we get will help him in the
This is
financial
why I
crusade.
want you. This
Yep.
is why I want you to stay in touch with us. And if you don't speak to Herman or I directly, or Sean, talk to Ryan, and Ryan will get the word to us.
Yes, I have your email address. And then also that Mr. Dotson now in Memphis, he's in the
Yeah.
same boat. He's in the same boat. And that was something else too. That there's two people, this attorney that was arrested and then Mr. Dotson that was arrested. So that was another thing because it's going to get more widespread. And I would have been pretty selfish to have stepped out of this for my
Lens
own reason.
Capture says, Lens Capture, Tom, we know him personally, a great gentleman. He says, sorry, I'm not licensed to represent you in the state of Louisiana.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It means a lot.
You know, so you have the support is there.
Yes.
I mean, the support is definitely there. And I mean, you have FPV pilots who don't fly camera drones. You have people who fly camera drones who don't fly FPV. You have people that fly fixed wings, excuse me, that are getting breast of this story. Because like Herman said, James today, you tomorrow.
That's correct.
And with what's going on in Memphis, it sounds like it sounds like there's these small towns are getting together and trying to say, hey, let's see who's going to be the first state to go viral or make this thing take off with these irritating drones, even though they know nothing about drones, even though they may not have a lot of people in that town that fly their drones. They want to make it known, but through fear mongering.
Hey, Lawrence, read what Mike Drennan just put up. I think that's fantastic.
I'm glad my name and donation is on the GoFundMe page. You know what, Mike Drennan, you and everybody else who has donated to this cause, this is a cause. We're not donating so somebody can go to Spin Up.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. We're not donating so someone can go to Disney World.
There's been close to 1,000 shares on this, close to 1,000, and probably close to 100 people have donated for this. So
and all it takes is the right person to hear it. And I'm glad you're happy with your new lawyer. We have about 6 minutes left, and I seriously want you to keep in touch with Sean, Herman, and I.
I will certainly do that.
You have my email. You even have my personal number now.
I got you. I sure do.
You know,
I got you.
So even if you feel like talking or want some words,
and you're always welcome
something
to come on Sunday nights and
always
Wednesday
welcome
nights,
to come on our live stream. If you're like, guys, I got an update. I'm thinking faster than I can speak, but guys, I have an update. We might be able to knock these dummies in the head with a wood stick. I would love to hear that.
Pop in on the live stream chat. I'm on Wednesday nights, he's Sunday night.
Yep.
Yes, right.
Great.
I'm on Sunday. Night. Paul is on Monday. Sean is on all the time. Herman is on Wednesdays because Sean is on Ken Heron's show. He's pretty much, for someone who lives in the UK, I see him more here in the States than I do on his own channel. He's a great supporter, though.
I have no defense to that.
That's the beauty of YouTube and the internet.
This is true.
So far away, but yet so close.
And I know people are going to watch this live stream over.
Yep.
Thank you to every single one of you for taking the time to do this. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to my family. I will pray for every single one of you, and I'll do everything that I can do to follow this through. As long as I can afford to do it, I will do that. And then I will start taking a bigger part in situations like this.
We will
help other people.
We will personally get you through this next 2 years, man, God willing.
I believe that. I appreciate it. I do.
Just remember, James, you're not walking alone.
If I have to write James Benson on one of my FPV drones and go for a flight, and this is for you, James, man, you know, I'll to support you through this. It means a lot.
That's great.
You know,
I
and the
appreciate it.
fact that it's
As-
somebody halfway across the country that I may have never heard about or ever met, but we have something in common. We fly drones.
Right.
That's right. That's
And
right.
you
And
still fly drones. You're just on sabbatical.
that's it. I'm on a temporary break, but I'm definitely I'm gonna buy me another one when this is over
Listen,
with.
by
I'm
the
gonna,
time you're done, remote ID and all that stuff will be out of the way.
That's good. I'm ready, man. I was loving this. I was loving it. I grinned from ear to ear every time I crunked that thing up.
Now, and what about the adrenaline rush you get?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, they shut me down from being able to fly this in the warrant the day they arrested me. It had on there no drone flight. So I have been out of it for nearly 2.5 years, 2 years and 2 months. I have not
Wow.
flown a drone in 2 years and 2 months.
Wow.
Well, as you were saying, you were fairly close to the state line. Have you got a friend that lives just at the other side of the state line that
That's
could
correct.
hold a drone for you? And
That's
you could
correct.
you could pop across the state line, have a little fly, and then come home.
I plan on doing just that.
Awesome.
I gave mine. I got rid of mine as soon as the judge gave me that order. I got rid of it. I didn't want
Now,
nobody to
here's-
dig for anything to use against
No, you don't
me,
want
so.
excuses. Exactly.
Now, they did say you cannot fly a drone and you cannot touch a drone, but I fly FPV, right? Hold on. I'm getting to the point. Give me a second. I fly FPV. And with these suckers right here, it feels like you're flying. Find somebody close by. So find someone in your town or
Herman
wherever
shaking his head.
that flies FPV. Put these suckers on. You won't leave the ground, but it'll damn sure feel like you are.
I'll do that.
They didn't say you couldn't watch. They didn't
No,
say you
no,
couldn't watch. And
I've
the
got a
drone-
neighbor. I've got a neighbor that has. In fact, that's who I sold my drone to. And they have a hemp. They just started a hemp farm, and they use this drone to kind of watch activity around their hemp farm. So I'll go up, and they have these goggles. So I'll go up.
There
with
you
them.
go. There you go. There you go.
Then-
Listen,
then-
it's 6:59.
Hold on a
We have
second,
to.
Mark. James,
You guys have anything to say before we get out of here?
When I first heard this, I thought that immediately. I'm like, is this deputy got something going on over there that he doesn't want anybody to see?
That may be it.
Hey,
This hemp garden just started up. He's actually a farmer. He's a licensed farmer. So that just started up. So that that's
Listen,
probably
listen. Go, James. Go over there and make friends with them. Okay, make
Gotcha.
friends with them. You get a pair of FPV goggles. Its frequency is on 5.8 megahertz. You can't fly. You're not flying if
That's
you got
right.
the goggles on, but mentally you are.
I got you. I'll give that a shot.
Shot in a drop.
No shot in the draw. Stop it, Paul. Listen, it's 7 p.m. James Benson, I appreciate you coming on. Please keep us abreast of what's going on. You have my email now. I respond very quickly on emails, as you see. You know,
Gotcha.
I
Yes,
was
you
like,
do.
make sure you got Zoom or computer or whatever you got to do, and that worked out fine. But contact
gotcha.
me, Herman, or Sean. And
Thank every one of you guys. I
please-
appreciate it a lot.
please come back. We're gonna do one more drop and we're gonna get out of here.
Gotcha.
It's dinner time for me and for a few other people. Sunday nights with those guys are sponsored by
Those
guys.
Sean. We appreciate you, Sean, Justin, Paul, Mary, Herman, Phantom Flight 101, and especially you, James Benson. Please come back, even if it's
certainly
just to hang out with us and shoot the breeze.
Gotcha. I'll do that.
You can live vicariously through us. We will fly for you.
I look forward to that.
Okay.
Okay. You guys
All
in
right.
the chat, cool, Bick, everyone, take it easy. If you got here late, you need to watch it from the beginning, plain and simple. Good night, everyone. Don't forget Paul tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Phantom Flight 101, Wednesday nights at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sean is on what days?
Thursday night.
I'm not on this week. I'm on Tuesday and Thursday night next week.
Tuesdays and Thursday nights of next week. Later, everyone. Thank you for the
Later.
support, and go
Thank
to
you.
that link and donate some.
Yes, please
some
give
money.
whatever you can,
Yeah,
everyone.
give what
please.
you can. It's a cause that's worth it. If it does, we don't help this man out, who's going to help us when it happens to us? Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Oh, wait a minute. I clicked the wrong button.
We're
Hold
off
on.
air.